Welcome to Blue Tinted Glasses, the home of Leicester City talk on YouTube. Fan debates, live watch-alongs, post-match reactions. Subscribe now and see the game through Blue Tinted Glasses.
Good evening, one and all, and welcome to Blue Tinted Glasses. It's Tuesday, and that means it's time for the Tuesday night tactics show. And this is the show where we look at the latest in an inevitable Leicester City defeat and reminisce about how good things were 10 years ago. And tonight, I am joined by the Michael B. Jordan to my Timothy Chalamet. It's none other than the main man behind Blue Tinted Glasses. It's Locks. Good evening, Locks. How are you on this fine Tuesday evening?
I am all good, mate. I'm all good. The worst day of the week is meant to be Monday, but I think it might be tonight because we're going to be going over we're just going to be talking about Leicester. That's as bad as it gets.
Yeah, I think anyone that's tuned into this show, fair play to you because it's so depressing. And I've got to say, well, I mean, we'll get into it. What were your thoughts on this match? Because this result and the performance was absolutely dreadful, in my opinion.
I was accused of being negative when I predicted a 1-1. I was fluttering between a 1-1 and a 2-1 win, but you just can't trust this Leicester team. You can't trust the players. You can maybe trust one or two individuals to put a shift in, but there's just not enough of that in the team. And I think even the most positive of fans, if you ask them, deep down. Do you really see Leicester getting back-to-back wins this season? I think deep down a lot of them would have said no, and that's obviously what happened. It was just like, I know the Ipswich game was a draw, but it was a positive result, and you follow it up with the Norwich game, and here we are again, right? This is embarrassing, and it doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon.
No, I mean, I got duped. I thought we'd at least get a result, but I mean, how dreadful is it? Well, anyway, let's look at the show tonight. So we're going to go for the match review. And really what we're going to be talking about is not just the game, but in general, what has Gary Rowett brought to Leicester? What are the chances of us staying up? How are things been going on? What do we need to do? So we're going to go through all of that. Yeah, Clibo says, I think even Rowett has had enough. And yeah, I was saying to Lux, can you find me a good still of Gary Rowett saying, what on earth have I got myself in for? And I think he's done a good job there with that picture. We'll get to it. So let's look at the game itself. So it finished 3-1. And I think for me, there's so many sad things to take away from this. First is the fact that we actually took the lead in this match, if you cast your mind back. Now, it's funny because I saw Jordan James being interviewed afterwards and he said, we played really well in a half an hour. We got 1-0 up. We almost went 2-0 up. I got to say, I completely disagree. But I will say, fair play to him. He did take his chance, right? And I personally think we probably took the goal against the run of play. I think both teams were very poor in the match. I'm not going to take anything away from QPR. They got the 3 points. But, compared to the last time we played them, where they absolutely blew us away, I think this game we just kind of handed them the points. But yeah, look, looking at these stats, the thing that makes me just so disappointed is at home, just how poor we were in terms of the XG, the big chances, the shots. QPR had way more chances and we conceded one right just before half time and there was no reaction and we just capitulated. And look at that, 15 minutes is all it took either side of half time for the match to get away from us. So what were your thoughts looking at the game?
Yeah, I mean, one thing stands out to me on the screen right here, Anil. All of their goals, obviously there was a half time in between, but all of their goals came within 15 minutes of each other, 15 minutes of football. And I think this, sums up our season perfectly, this game. The fact that you've come off the back of a positive result and you follow up with that. But also, as soon as they score one, there's only one team that are going to go and, turn the game around. There's only one team that are going to go and win it. And, I'll say it again. I've said it a lot this week already. In the Bristol City game, I think if they would have scored that penalty, I think they would have drawn or won the game. They would have got points out of it, despite us being 2-0 up. And this proved it again here in this game. They score one. The worst time to concede a goal, by the way, just before half-time. They've got all the confidence at half-time. Their manager has a much easier team talk to do because they scored that goal before half-time. All he says is, start the second half as you ended that half, and we'll be absolutely fine. And that's basically what they did. They came out. They were just better than us in pretty much every department, and that was it. It was game over really. As soon as they scored the second, it was game over. So yeah, the only way I can describe it, and I keep describing it this way, is I do think it's just the epitome of this season. That game.
Yeah, it's a very Leicester performance. Richard, who's a QPR fan in chat, I totally agree with you. He says, can I be honest, your manager lost the game, and after the first goal, you sat back and sat on a 1-0, which I agree with. I think, though, before that, we weren't exactly, throwing everything at the kitchen sink at your goal. I think it was our first real effort at the goal. And, from Ryan here as well, totally agree. Our midfield had no control in it 1-0. That's the point we're going to get to a little bit later on. For me, that's the issue all season long. But kind of getting into
on the manager, Anil. Sorry if I jump the gun here, but if I jump the gun, so we might talk about it later. But he admitted in his post-match interview, "Oh well, I could have made changes at half time, but I wanted to give them another 10-15 minutes." And I mean, look, I suppose I think football is very, very hindsight, right? Where, if we went out and we scored another goal, obviously it wouldn't matter, but it didn't work. He should have made the changes at halftime. We said he should have made the changes at halftime. Everyone in our live chat said he needed to make changes at halftime. He didn't. And obviously that quote that he said, I can't trust the players, or I can't trust certain players. I think that proved it. He trusted them to go out there in the first 5-10 minutes of the second half and try and put it right. And they did the complete opposite. So yeah, I would probably give Rowett 60% of the blame for this loss.
No, I agree. I think that's been generous because I think, what has this team shown all season? I can't really think of a single game where a player who's been underperforming in one half all of a sudden had the belter in the second half. It's like if they start bad, it's almost like pull them off right away. And, another thing, we are going to get onto that subs because that is a big talking point. But I think another thing that has to be talked about is the team selection. So this is pretty much the team selection that we used against Bristol City. The changes were that Hamza came in. Hamza even started against Bristol City, so he kept his place. Divine Macassar came in for Bobby de Cordova-Reid. But obviously the big talk is number 9, Jordan Ayew. I haven't got a specific point about him, but I will say to everyone in chat, keep an eye on Jordan Ayew's positioning. And a lot of the screenshots that I share with you is absolutely insane that it's just a guy lost on the pitch. But I mean, that's another big thing, Locks, though, is that what about these team selections? Because you've got a lot of that back four who keep making mistakes. Caleb Okoli is apparently undroppable for why I don't really know why. The midfield, we had Jordan James in the midfield, but no Harry Winks. I mean, just what was your overall take on it? We're going to go through all these points a little bit later too.
I think, look, I think when you do keep the first clean sheet in 31 games, I think you can kind of forgive Gary Rowett for not changing the defence, I think. Some would argue, maybe someone who's more ruthless would argue, no, you should still do it. I disagree. You don't keep a clean sheet in 31 games. You keep one. You don't change the back line, in my opinion. I think we said at the time, in the first half, Hamza did all right, to be fair. He didn't really do much wrong. Nelson looked the shakier out of the two centre-backs.
Not for the first time.
Exactly, but consistently, it is Okoli who tends to be worse. Luke Thomas, magically, somehow, and this is a miracle, Anil, somehow Luke Thomas is the least of our problems at the moment, I feel.
Yeah.
out of the back line. But the main one, of course, is Jordan Ayew. I mean, look, when he was dropped, he scored against Ipswich. He was dropped, or he scored in one of the games. He was dropped against Bristol City. And you think, okay, he's resting him for the weekend. Clearly, that wasn't the case because Ayew played again the following game. That stat, Anil, that we read out on Good Morning Fox is 16 shots on target in over 2,000 minutes of football. He's averaging a shot on target every 2.5 games. Pathetic. So I've never thought we'd say this. Patson Daka has to start, I think, every game for the rest of the season. Ayew should never wear this shirt again, in my opinion.
I'll totally agree. If they have to just pluck someone from the crowd and put him up front, it's just pathetic seeing him. And like I say, the evidence is here for all to see when we start going through some of the footage as well. One thing I will say about Rowett, it's not much of an improvement, But compared to Marti Cifuentes, we do at least have games where we do look like we've got a bit of momentum. But I will say that, Rich has put it in chat, so a lot of people, you self called it out in the game when we did the watch along. But the depressing thing is pretty much after we scored, we just sat back and let QPR have the ball. And then, okay, it was a complete bozo moment, which we'll get to, that led to the goal. But, if you invite this pressure on yourselves and you're not really the best team, I mean, I've seen Rowett talk about he wants to see like resilience from his team, but I don't know. It just feels like, we're our own worst enemies, but we play into the hands of this by sitting back and not really taking the game. And, I said against Bristol City, the one thing I liked is after we scored, we kept going for another one. We should have scored a second with Mabadidi. We didn't, but then we did get another goal, which as it turned out, we probably would have needed. Whereas in this game, we never really... I mean, the sad thing is basically after our goal attempt, there was like maybe one half chance, which I'll show. But after that, we didn't do anything. And QPR, we're going to get to the stats about them. They were in awful form. And I don't think they had an easier game this season, except probably the last time they played us was probably the only time it was easier. What did you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It doesn't really matter because we've obviously lost the game. But when you look at the momentum here, it is very different to an Andy King or a Marti Cifuentes Leicester team. I think earlier in the season, maybe it was a little more similar to this. But as the season went on, it would literally just be on your screen right here. One of these halves would have been all the home team, and the other half would have been completely the away team. But it doesn't matter, right? You've conceded 3, you've only scored 1. They're going away with the points. And you got to remember that QPR hadn't scored in 4 games, I think it was, before this game. Charity case, Leicester City, just legs wide open for QPR to go through. And it's, again, we sat here earlier in the season, and you did the analysis, and then... we talk about the January window. Okay, what can we do? We need to strengthen. And then you sack the manager and you're like, okay, we'll get a new manager in. And it looked promising for a few games. And I said it at the time, maybe that was just a manager bounce. Maybe 2 draws or 3 draws and a win. That was our manager bounce. And now we are just back to the levels we were at previously. And yeah, that's true. Ray says they were outscored 12-0 in the last 4 games. They've beaten us 7-2, I think, this season on aggregate. QPR, if you over the two ties. So,
and the biggest shock is we got 2.
Yeah, absolutely, mate, absolutely. That is the biggest surprise. So it's, I mean, Clibbo said there, QPR showed what type of football gets results in dogfight, and the worst part is QPR are probably just about on the beach. We have a lot more to play for, and they just wanted it more than us in every department.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Will here. The worst part about these players is they're so bad. I can't get excited for them leaving, and our summer rebuild is always going to be likely, but it's going to be in League One, and we're going to be skin. Absolutely. Well, all right, let's move on. So let me ask you then, Lux. Let's rewind it a little bit. So Gary Rowett gets appointed after we sack Andy, well, not sack Andy King, but sack Marti Cifuentes, and then Andy King isn't good enough. What were you expecting from him before he took over? What in your head were you thinking? And, I think you did think it was a good appointment at the time. What sort of style did you think we'd play?
I thought we would shore up the defence. I thought the organisation would have been improved at the back. And I think, there have still been signs of that. Maybe not so much in the last game, but especially their first goal, which was horrific. But I just think... I expected, we spoke to Jack, the Oxford fan, and, he kind of gave his views on what he expected, really, from Rowett coming in. You would expect a Gary Rowett team to work hard, which they have done in the previous few games, probably bar Norwich and this one. You expect them all to put a shift in. You expect defensively them to be better, set pieces. And I would argue... to a degree, we have improved slightly on set pieces. Very, very, very slightly, but I think we have improved slightly. But at the end of the day, I think Gary Rowett, Anil, is suffering what every manager has suffered at Leicester City over the last couple of years, and it's the squad. And they're suffering their punishment. They must be thinking, what did I do to the footballing gods to deserve a squad as weak and spineless as this? And as we said, he's not blameless. Marty Cifuentes certainly wasn't blameless, and neither was Andy King. But the squad let down every manager. They do. When Gary Rowett's watching that Bristol City game on Tuesday night, when that full-time whistle goes, he will be wishing that they could just go straight into the next game, QPR game, straight away. He was probably looking forward to that QPR game Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday morning, and he sees that. And he must be thinking, he must have been sat there. How many times did we see it with Marty, when Marty would just be sat on the touchline like,
yeah,
oh.
yeah.
And I think it would be the same for Rout. I think he must be thinking, what on earth is going on? So he's not blameless, but I don't, he's been thrown into a poison chalice. Let's be honest. That is it. And I think his profile, you would have thought this is the last chance. If that profile of manager can't get enough out of this squad, no one fucking will. Personally, that's how I see it.
I think that's obvious from now. Sad to say. I mean, we just saw it there. I mean, so I'll put it here. Yeah, I pretty much agree with you. I was expecting an improved defense through organization and also a bit more of approach. Like, I did expect him to sit back in more games, so that didn't really surprise me. I thought we'd have more counter-attacking mentality and being a bit more direct, like a little bit less tippy-tappy and a little bit more going long. Although we actually haven't seen that much of a change in it, but I'll show you some stuff. There has been a little bit of it.
And let me ask you that, Neil. On that point, sorry, Neil. On that point,
no worries.
Do you not think it was the first half against Stoke in his first game where we weren't really trying to control the game and we just couldn't get near them? I think Rowett learnt there in the first 45 minutes, we are better when we are in control. That's the way I see it. Because I've said it all season when Imran was talking about Dyche and certain managers and no tippy tappy, no possession football. Oh, I want to play counter attacking. I do think we could play counter attacking, but I just think we're better when we try and control the game. And I think you've seen the evidence of that even under Rowett. So you might prove me wrong, Anil, but I just think when we give the opposition the ball and we just let them play with it, I think that's when we're at our worst, personally.
I agree, because we can't defend. Whether or not he's learning or not, I think you might be right there. I actually hadn't considered that point, but I will say, and I'll show this later on, is I just don't think we can control games because of the way that we just don't have the squad through. I don't think our squad is set up to do anything, to be honest with you, other than lose, which is why we do it a lot. But it's kind of sad. A lot of good points coming from chat, which we'll get to in a second. But yeah, I thought we'd be a bit better at scoring from set pieces, just because we'd be a bit more of a defensive and hit teams on the counter. The more reliance upon experience didn't surprise me at all. That's what I expected of him coming in. Just get this senior pros, play a kind of grimy, pragmatic style. And yeah, not overthink things. Just do the basics and just try and scrape out a few 0-0s, 1-0s, 1-1s. Just get points on the table rather than looking to entertain and be spectacular. Just do whatever it could take to survive. Problem is that I think he has tried all of that and it's not worked either, which is very sad, and we'll kind of come to. But getting into more the actual analysis in the game. So obviously a problem that we've had all season is Luke Thomas. But I will say that I think one thing that Rowett's done is that other than this sort of first half against Stoke, where Luke Thomas was to blame for some of the goals, actually, you'd have to say that from then on, he actually hasn't been the culprit for a lot of the goals that we've conceded. Unfortunately, he's moved to the centre-back pairing. So what's the main reason for that? The main reason kind of listed here is under Marty Cifuentes, he inverted both the fullbacks to almost be attacking midfielders at time, and they'd probably be taking this sort of position. But under Rowett, he's actually being more of just a regular left back. And actually he's here, and actually the ball's going to come here now to Jordan James. So if you just see this kind of attack, what the fullback is doing now is he's just basically, just supporting the winger and getting involved that way and being more direct. But it actually has got the best out of Luke Thomas and whoever's playing on the other side. So watching this move through, you can see here that Jordan James wins the ball. You got Luke Thomas here. They combine, and now you've got Jordan James is going to make the run down this side, and Luke Thomas is also going to follow on. Now, mentioning Jordan Ayew, I mean, what's wrong with this picture? Where's Jordan Ayew standing?
Where he fucking loves to stand. He becomes a left. I'm not even going to call it a left winger now. I'm going to call him a left wing back. That's what he becomes, a left wing back.
Yeah, exactly. And that's crazy because as we'll get the move going on, right, Jordan James now gets to the byline, and what he'd love to do, and he's capable of doing it, even being on his left foot, is swinging in across. But he's only got Fatawu really to aim at. Makassa, to be fair, is making the run into the box. But Jordan Ayew, because he was too busy being in this conga line over this side and not really getting involved, he's not there to be the focal point. So what that means, unfortunately, exactly stands in the way of everyone. And yeah, the first thing he looked at was IU, same here. So Jordan James actually has to cut back and he plays the ball back into Luke Thomas. But here's what Raul has does. Like I said, he simplified the fullbacks game. It means that defensively they're in the right position. It means Luke Thomas can play across first time. And this time it comes to Makaze, who has a half decent attempt. It goes wide, but that was promising early on from the kind of raiding fullbacks. And it's something that we've seen a couple of times. Here's later on in the game as well. Luke Thomas circled. Here we've got Mavadidi. The two of them kind of combine. Luke Thomas plays it into Stefan Mavadidi. And actually for the first part of the movie does really well, beats his man, surges down the wing, gets into the box, goes for an attempt. But do you know where the ball went here?
Go on. Wow.
Went in for a throw-in. There's so many underperformers, but what I will say that in terms of the move, like I say, it's more simplified. We did get in a few times down the wings doing this kind of play. We also did down the other side, and like I say, it has improved the left back, and I don't really think it's as much of a problem position, although that's famous last words of Leicester, because it does feel that when a player has 2 or 3 good games, they revert to making a hideous mistake in the next one. But that's kind of pretty decent there. And then final move, Luke Thomas again picking up the ball here. This time he has kind of come in a little bit, but still not as far up sort of this kind of things. Again, he's going to work with Mavadidi, plays the ball to Mavadidi. But this time what I really like is they kind of linking up. Is he makes this run down here, again, supporting the winger. So like I say, it's more of the traditional 4-2-3-1 is that your fullback works with the winger because the winger is going to cut inside, which means that the fullback can go outside. So the fullback is the one who's going to get to the byline for the cross, or the winger can cut in for the shot. So you've seen both of those things here. So this time round, Luke Thomas comes in. Mavadidi does play the ball to him. He can go for the cross, a cross goal. This time round, Jordan Ayew is actually in the right position. He's not the best finisher, so it kind of doesn't end up going in. He can't kind of back heel or anything like that. But again, it is a half decent move, and I do think with more time working on the training ground, the more maybe better players, a striker whose positioning is better, it's something that could be more effective. Because what's good here is, if it had bounced out, it could have gone to Fatawu. Jordan James there is joining the attack. Look how far Hamza is actually. So you can see that the way that we attack is what you're not really seeing is you're not seeing Skip or Winks here. They're still sat back in case the ball gets turned over. And the attack is coming from the wingers, the striker, one midfielder, and the fullbacks joining in. So that's a bit surprising because you might think that Gary Rowett would tell Hamza actually not to go forward and just leave 4 forward. But we have a bit of an attacking mentality. So interesting to see with the fullbacks. So that was there. Now, here's an interesting comment, actually, because someone just put here, this might get a few raised eyebrows, but apart from the goals, Jordan James wasn't great. He is returning from injury, but what did you make of his performance in this game?
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember too much of note other than the goal, right? And I think that's happened quite, it's not the first time that's happened with JJ. I think a lot of JJ's work comes off the ball. I think he offers a lot off the ball. He's going to put a shift in for as long as he's on the pitch. The desire is going to be there. He's going to put challenges in when he can. He's going to try to at least. So yeah, but it was nowhere near one of his best games, absolutely. But as you said, he is still coming back from injury, and I still think people were talking when he was coming back from injury that maybe he couldn't make it into the team. Maybe he'd have to work his place back. I think he proved with the goal alone. He doesn't. He needs to play because he's our player of the season for me. Like, it's not even a question. He's our player of the season.
In the 2 games he's come back, 2 goal contributions. It's as simple as that. The sad thing is, though, is that, we did win 1 game with him in the team, but this time round in the game that he scored in, we didn't get anything from it. But here we can see his goal. So this is probably the only good thing Ben Nelson did in the entire game. Gets the ball building from the back. He plays the ball through the lines into Jordan James, who receives it on the turn, spins, just drives at goal. And, no one's going to play the ball to Jordan Ayew. I wouldn't either. So fair play. He drives on, has a shot, and scores. Now, at first, a lot of people thought it was a wonder goal. I got to be honest with you. If you look at this shot, I think the keeper's had a mare there. He just needs to put his hand out. He should stop that and tip that around the post. But look, I'm not going to complain. And you've got to say that Jordan James, look, here's the crazy thing, right? So 10 goals, 4 assists. That's quite a return given he only came in late on in the window. But what I think is crazy is he's only expected to have scored like 4. So the crazy thing is, we're terrible, right? We've got an amazing player, but he is so bailing us out of trouble, him and Fatawu. It's ridiculous. It's not like one of those games where I feel like, do you know Dewsbury Hall? I think he scored 17 goals in that season we won the championship. right? But I actually think he underperformed the amount of goals. He probably should have scored a few more. But you can see that JJ, he is just one of those players that is capable of getting you something out of nothing. And the sad thing is he literally did that in this game. I agree with you. I think other than that, he maybe wasn't too involved in the game, but I don't think he was like doing anything necessarily bad. There's one moment you'll see he could have done a bit better. We'll show for one of the goals. But yeah, it's just sad that we've got a player that is able to do that, and yet we still sit second bottom of the championship.
Yeah, he's not. I mean, you can see from the data, he's not a creator, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, he's box to box, isn't he?
Well, he's a box to box, but more importantly, he is just a match winner. He's a match winner. He's a point winner, right? We're not winning many games, so I'll call it a point winner. He is a point winner. He will score another one of them, Anil, in the next 8 games. It will happen. Yeah. He will win us points in the next 8 games, in the last 8 games. So, yeah, look, I don't think I don't think we have had or will have a 10 out of 10 performance for JJ. That sounds crazy because, like we're saying, he's our best player, but you know he doesn't do loads in a game. He doesn't create loads of chances. But what he does do and what he's good at, he's very, very good at. So, yeah, I think as I said, I'll repeat it again. I think he has to play solely for that reason that he is a match winner, and he will score goals from midfield. And Harry Winks and Oliver Skip will not score you goals from midfield. Mukasa could get a couple, maybe, but you know JJ's going to score. I would put money on the fact that he's going to score 3 more goals between now and the last.
I agree. And it still probably isn't going to be enough. But I mean, yeah, look, another thing I say about Jordan James, believe it or not, he's younger than Ben Nelson. Yes. So, you know, for someone of his age, he's definitely only going to get better. But I feel sorry for him if it's going to be the second relegation already in this short career, because he was too good for both the teams he played for that got relegated. So yeah, great that he's back in the team. Great that he's scoring goals. Sad that it still wasn't enough. And I agree with Will that if we didn't have JJ this season, we'd probably be relegated already. So that was our goal. But now, okay, the thing that I think we've discussed this a few times on the watch-alongs that surprised us is that Gary Rowett has reintroduced the offside trap. Now, that is something that we used a lot under Enzo, but at the start of this season, specifically Yannick Vestergaard, that was something that caught us out. So we didn't use it for a long time. And as you said, we went for a small counter-attack. But what Rowett has done is he's reintroduced the offside trap. And in some games, it's actually been quite effective. But obviously, with the offside trap, it can also go against you if you've got kind of problems. Now, you might remember this, but this is the movie that no one wanted to watch longs, which is called The Bozo Brothers. And this is what affected us early in the season, Vestergaard and FaZe. Wout has obviously gone to Monaco. Yannick is injured at the moment. But unfortunately, I've got bad news for you, Locks, because the sequel that no one ever wanted to see happen has happened. And I present to you 2 Bozo, 2 Brain Dead. This is the new centre-back pairing for Leicester City. You've got Caleb, red card, stroke, pass the ball to Middlesbrough when you're 1-0 up a Coley. And alongside him, you've got Ben shit-the-bed Nelson, who I think is another one who's a massive underperformer. And I think it goes all the way back to that game that Marty first tested him in the Cup, and maybe he did work him out, that he's not kind of good enough. So these two, I feel like they both make errors every game, but they're making terminal errors. And we'll get to the keeper as well in a moment. But I mean, for me, we'll get to it, but I think Nelson's got to come out of the team. And to be honest with you, if Yannick was back, I would just play Vestergaard in the cell, because I just feel that with these two, we got no chance of keeping a clean sheet. What do you think? I'm going to go before I get on to obviously my exhibits to show you.
I'm not going to argue against the fact that Ben Nelson's been poor. I'm not going to argue against that. However, I think Lascelles is going to come in, but I think it's for a Coley. And I actually think that there is a good chance, Anil, that Ben Nelson, and I know this sounds easy to say on paper, but there is evidence. We have seen it before, right? We have seen it before in football. When you put an experienced head next to the younger player, it can improve things. So I would not be throwing Ben Nelson out of the team just yet, personally.
Really?
I would not. I would be throwing a Coley out, head first, gone. And I think you play Lascelles next to Nelson. Now, if things don't improve from that point, Anil, I agree. You know, obviously you can't keep giving chances.
8 games left to go, Locks. Can you risk another catastrophe?
For who?
This guy,
for who?
Well, I'm saying if he's available, I'd put Yannick and Lascelles in the team. The experience.
It's a very slow back line, isn't it? It's a very, very slow
It is, but do you want to know something? I was looking at the stats logs. Believe it or not, when the first iteration of the Bozo brothers was playing, we conceded less goals of these two in the team. Since we made that change, Marty made the change and he's put 2 Bozo, 2 Braindead in the team. That's when we've been absolutely horrific.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment for sure. I would say under Rowett, it's not been the case though, right? I know we conceded 3 against QPR, but like, what was it? It was 1 goal conceded against, 2 against Stoke, 1 against Borough, 1 against Ipswich.
I'll show you some stuff later on that might make you rethink.
I'm agreeing. Yeah. I'm agreeing. Nelson's been poor. I'm agreeing.
Yeah.
I just don't think you throw him out just yet. I think I would say I would have faith that Jamal Lascelles coming in next to Nelson. I think that could help the situation. But I'm in agreement. If it doesn't, and if Nelson keeps making mistake after mistake, then when he's fit, yes, Vestergaard. Or you go for a back 3. A Lascelles, Vestergaard, Nelson back 3 could be interesting.
Yeah, that could be. Oh, I mean, the issue is like I say, I mean, the problem is these errors are totally catastrophic and it's just the loss of concentration. So, speaking about the offside trap, Richard QPR fan mentioned this before. So it's such a soft goal to give away. Like, we're sitting here, QPR goes to their fullback, he's got nothing really to do, so he passes the ball back. So midfielder plays it back to Ronnie Edwards. Ronnie Edwards gets the ball. There's not really much on. So do you know what he's going to go for? He's just going to go for the hopeful punt upfield, right? And if you're a team and you see the opposition do this, you should be thinking, fantastic. How easy is this? We've made it so they got nothing on, so they're just going to punt it back and we can get possession back and start the attack ourselves. But instead, we're trying to play the offside trap. Now, firstly, if you are trying to play the offside trap, what the hell is this positioning? Like, you're supposed to be in the line. Now, maybe Hamza stepped up because he's been told to put special attention on the winger. That's possible. But, your centre-back pairing aren't in line. You can say, to be fair, that Luke Thomas and Caleb Okoli are actually holding. Look, you can see luckily you've got that nice guide there in terms of what the line should be. But Ben Nelson, I mean, the problem is they didn't really do enough replay, so I can't sort of tell if he was playing him on side to begin with or he got duped, whatever. But linesman didn't raise his flag, so clearly he was on side. So he's just been lazy. He's lost concentration. And then ball comes into this area. And then, you got a lot of problems here. Now, if you are going to play the offside trap, next big thing to do is to keeper can step up to be a sweeper keeper, right? So that's your insurance. If the ball does come in the top, keeper just comes out, clears it, get rid of it. Yak was in no man's land. Not the first time he's done this. You might remember against Preston North End earlier in the season. He made a similar mistake here. Caleb's over here, goes to Paul Smith. And, with this positioning, I don't know what it is. He's not even really trying to spread himself properly. Chips it over and it's an easy goal. And I wanted to highlight the referee here because I think this sums up Leicester. But if you look in the move, who's the fastest player out of the Leicester team in terms of getting back? It's the frigging referee. Unbelievable. Yeah, I agree. Keeper has to take him out. I mean, I guess the issue is you don't want your keepers to get red carded. We've had a lot of problems here. But, I mean, it's just I'll ask you to kind of see it. But for me, yeah, terrible positioning. And not just terrible positioning, but maybe it is with the leader, but I'm not even sure if you have Lascelles in the team is going to help it because, as I say, in this case, the keeper should be further up anyway, just in case this comes on because, you've got time. As soon as you see that ball coming up, it must probably take 1, 2, 3, 4, probably takes 4 or 5 seconds for the ball even to get here. So if you're alert, you can read the situation and make a decision based on that. But the entire team just freezes at a valuable time in the game. And, you look at the goal again and it's just never in a month of Sundays. This is if you played Sunday League, you get shouted at for this. This is just insane that you can just let the defender pump a ball into this area and you can let out. Oh, look at this. It's 4-on-1 advantage for the home team. And you let, not even their striker. It's just attacking midfielder, winger, get onto the ball and score first. So, I mean, what did you just make of this? I was furious of this. Furious.
It's funny you say Sunday League, mate, because I saw something online the other day which made me laugh where somebody said it's like Sunday League defending, and this guy replied saying that's very disrespectful to Sunday League. To call it Sunday League defending, like
Yeah, it wouldn't be scored in Sunday League because that's the type of goal that you see there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Look, communication is a problem there, I think. Concentration, like you said as well, that is a problem. And positionings. They're the three things I would say. Communication, positioning, and concentration. You say, you don't know how much difference Lascelles would make. I mean, it's just this weird thing in football, Anil. Like, do you remember, like, Johnny Evans? Whenever Johnny Evans would play, the guy next to him would just be instantly better.
So
like, weirdly. It's like he had a FIFA stat improve, like the sliders on FIFA make them better. But yeah, I think communication, this is the type of situation, Anil, where I think if communication was improved in this situation, maybe it wouldn't have led to a goal. And I think having Lascelles, for example, next to Nelson might have helped. The communication would have been better for sure. I mean, for starters, I don't think Okoli speaks English. To be honest, like, genuinely, I don't think he does speak English, or if he does, it's not very well. So, I don't know how much of an actual partnership Nelson and Okoli actually have. And then you've got an absolute fucking fraud behind you as defenders. You've got an absolute fraud behind you who you can't trust in Jakub Stolarczyk.
That's another issue.
I mean, when you look at the three, I mean, it's funny now, right? You mentioned, the previous Bozo partnership, Wout Faes and Vestergaard. But when you look at in isolation, these three people, Ben Nelson, Caleb Okoli, and Jakub Stolarczyk, that's not a top-end championship backline kind of thing.
Locks is a bottom-end championship backline, and that's why we're in the bottom end. And I've got a question for you, and in chat as well. In your opinion, who's the best goalkeeper in the championship?
I would say it's the former Leicester Johansson.
Victor Johansson, right? And do you know, if you didn't have him as number one, I'm sure someone who'd be in maybe top 3, top 5 would be Daniel Iverson, who plays for Preston North End. Do you know what club he also played for, the Dogs?
Oh, I don't know.
Exactly. So, and it's the problem with the defenders as well, is I feel like we've got defenders who are supposedly good at playing the ball out with their feet, which I don't even think there is. There's countless mistakes they make it, but
well, the best two with the feet in nil were Vestergaard and Faes, right? They were the best.
Well, exactly, which is probably why we're a bit better than them. And this is a good question. Why would he play the offside trap when none of our defenders have good recovery speed? I disagree with that slightly. I think they do have good recovery speed, but the problem is that when you've got bad positioning and bad, decision making, it just makes you look horrendous, like in this case. But I will say that what an issue is that if we continue to play this sort of system with these three players, I think you're just asking for trouble. And if I was a team looking at playing Leicester, I would be like, punt it longer more often, because they're going to make stupid decisions. And worst case for you as the attacking team is that you'll probably win a corner from it. And actually, I do remember against Bristol City, we did win that game, but in the first 5 minutes, they did something very similar. And Okoli and Jakub Stolarczyk, again, there was no communication between the two. And they ended up getting 4 or 5 corners in quick succession. Again, because none of these players is a leader. That's a big issue as well. And that's another thing when, the coaches are looking at defenders and stuff like that. Communication is an ability and a skill, and if they haven't learned it by the age they're hitting their 20s, I mean, it's something you got to think about. So anyway, unfortunately,
I was going to say that it's the same as the other end of the pitch when you talk about recovery speed. Like when Vardy lost his pace, he had the advantage up here, which gave him an extra yard that he'd lost in pace. And with the back line, Nelson and Okoli are our quickest two centre backs. But because their brains aren't all there, that sounds mean, but you know what I'm trying to say? Like their IQ and stuff isn't all there.
The evidence suggests that, doesn't it?
That extra yard of pace that they do have on Yannick Vestergaard is actually, Vestergaard's probably got the edge because he's quicker in the head. So, and even then, he's not that quick, Vestergaard. But you know what I mean? I think he's smart. He's smarter than these two, isn't he, Vestergaard? He is smarter than these two. So,
well, that's what the evidence suggests, because, like I said, I mean, that's a horrific error, and it gets even worse. So here's second half. Here's where it says maybe the one bad thing that JJ did all game. So midfield tussle, balls in the air here. He's trying to head the ball back here to his defense so he can recycle the attack, right? Instead, the ball ends up being won by, Ryan Coley plays it into Richard Kone. But again, if you look at this thing here, we're quite well set up. 2 men on the break. We got 2 defenders back. Luke Thomas has recognized the situation and getting his motorbike on to get back. So we're into this position. So Kone, you can see that in front of him, can't really get through here. So he's going to play the ball out wide. Comes into Harvey Vale, gets the ball here. Again, we're well set up. gets pushed wide. And, that means if he's going to score, he's going to have to put a really good, ball into the bottom hand corner. Luke Thomas does well here. Like I say, Rowett has worked on him defensively because in many other times he'd be caught out of position, but he's done well, got back, forcing the attacking player into a tough shot if he's going to score. But then what does Ben... Again, it's the lack of... You can say lots of concentration, but it's also a lack of communication. Ball comes across here. Now, what I've marked is you can see the ball is actually going wide. So the hilarious thing is if neither of these players do anything, it goes out of play. But instead, Ben Nelson slides in. I guess he's desperate trying to stop a goal and ends up putting into his net. And unfortunately...
And not even that, Neil. You said it's going wide. I think Jakob's even catch it. Like,
of course he is. Of course he is. You can see he's got it. He's actually... We've been dismissive of him, but he's got that comfortably covered, right? And instead it's been put past him. And unfortunately, if anyone, my sister asked me the other day, what's it like supporting Leicester at the moment? And I just sent her this picture. And she's like, oh, that bad is it? And I was like, yes, because the score got worse. So absolutely awful. Exactly. So I mean, and in the space of either side of half time conceded the first one on 43, second one on 48, and the game is over. And it's crazy because, like I say, and you look at it, and in this position, it's nothing. We're on the attack trying to take the games to QPR. Okay, unfortunate ricochet, but we're perfectly set up. And, I would lose my head if I was the manager here, because the problem is these are errors that are very hard. What can you really say? Don't be a fucking idiot is basically what you do. I mean, I would say what you've got to really work on is, I think, amongst these two centre-backs and the goalkeeper, there isn't a single one who is the leader stroke communicator. Someone's got to step up there, or they've got to assign it and saying, okay, you're the decision maker, right? So if this guy shouts, that's the guy that we go with. And it might end up with some positives, some negatives, but otherwise you end up in a position where you can only assume here he hasn't shouted leave. He's maybe, even if he did, he's gone for it. I don't really hear Jakob talking too much when he's on the field. You do hear other players from time to time, and horrific goals to kind of concede. What do you make of that? I mean, it was just so depressing when we saw that. I was actually more confident when the ball got to this place. I was like, I think we'll be all right. I think you may not have been, but horrific.
Yeah, I mean, it's always. Your first problem is, this is the thing with this team, isn't it? And when we talk about nerves, because your first concern is Luke Thomas going to defend this out wide? And then after that, the ball's going to come in and will the centre-back defend it? And then you have a third concern, which is the keeper going to save it? Now, it didn't make it to the keeper. It should have been quite simple for the keeper to save. But as you said, Ben Nelson, poor decision-making. Like you said, concentration. I think this is more concentration than communication even, because Nelson should know. He should be able to judge the path of that ball. Do you know what I mean? The best players, the best defenders would judge the path of that ball and leave it. The keeper, yes, it would help if Jakob shouted it, but are keepers allowed to shout keepers anymore? I swear they're not allowed to leave. They're not allowed to shout that anymore, no? Or is that leave? There's some of the players aren't allowed to shout anymore. You get a yellow card for it these days. But regardless, yeah, Nelson should have realised and recognised that that's not going to be too much of a problem, that ball. And even then, if you're going to put your foot on it, be fucking sure you're going to put it out for a corner.
Yeah.
And he wasn't, and it's gone in the back of the net. So, yeah, it's not good enough again.
Great finish by Ben Nelson for QPR, unfortunately, is what you can say. So, pretty poor. And then I think it gets even worse, specifically from him as well. So then just a couple of minutes later again, they have a corner. I think we had been slightly better on set pieces under Brower, but not here. Ball comes here, and it's just so simple. It's not even a clever corner or anything like that. Just pump it in. Ronnie Edwards gets up, scores a goal. But look at the positioning here as well. Again, QPR, they've got a little bit of a conga line here with three people. Look at this. These guys are just ball watching, right? Someone's not picked up their man, because you can see Akoli is actually with Richard Kone there. And that, well, you could say Kone got ahead of him, but at least he'd, be putting some pressure. I can see they are trying to be a bit clever on the corner. But again, you just look at Ben Nelson. I just think when you look at it here, he's just like, look at there. He's just like crestfallen. I think he's kind of given up there. But I mean, again, no leadership there. Who's organising that back four? Why are the positions been allowed that you can get a situation like this where you've essentially got a 3-on-1? That's criminal to allow that to happen. A CB going into the box and getting the ball. I mean, every team's going to be blaming for that. Ryan here, agree with it. Collective blame for the third one. Stolarczyk should have commanded and punched the ball clear. Skip and Nelson ball watching. Like, who is Skip on? Is he man marking Ben Nelson? That's the only thing I can really think of.
Skip's always on the shortest man as well, by the way, normally.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Manil, if none of your back four are leaders, you need your goalkeeper to command. And Jakob can't do that. This is why, I suppose Schmeichel, right? Schmeichel had that to his game where, Schmeichel, this goal wouldn't have gone in under Schmeichel.
No way. Yeah. And he was
this,
poor on corners as well. But he still wouldn't have allowed,
He would have been yapping. And the own goal wouldn't have happened under Schmeichel because he would have fucking made Ben Nelson aware this is my ball, right? So Jakob doesn't have that to his game. You've got Jakob, and then you've also got 4 players ahead of him who aren't leaders. So this is why I think, we're in agreement here, right? Lascelles should be coming in, just if anything, to bring that leadership.
Yeah, I do think that we're unfortunate that Begovic got injured as well, because I've been saying that as well, that maybe, like in terms of the raw basics, Jakob's not that bad in we have at least seen him make saves, unlike Danny Ward. We do occasionally see him do stuff, but he hasn't got that authority. He's just not a proper number one yet, and in my opinion never will be, because unfortunately you're seeing it this season. I think you're getting the acid test. I would say, again, compare him to Iverson or Johansson, who did manage to make the step up at this level, and they are quite commanding, the pair of them. So poor to do that. So that was 3-1, game was over. But I did mention this before, slow to make changes. So here we've got a game against Bristol City. You could say this one we were up, so didn't say changes till minute 68, which seems to be the common case with Guerrero. But you mentioned it earlier on in the show, how he could have made changes at half time but didn't. He waited until we were, I think, 2-1 down or 3-1 down before he started making the changes. Then he finally I think we were 3-1 down. Then he's put on Daka, Winks, Cordova, Reed, and then Ricardo and Richards came on later. We had a bit of a shape change, but I'm not sure why he's doing that. Do you think he'll continue to do that? Because he has done it every single game. Marty, when he first started, was very good at making changes. Then he completely lost it about sort of 10 games in, where he stopped making changes sort of early to be proactive. What do you think about this? Or has he also come to the same conclusion? I think a lot of our managers do that. They're all shit, and I'm just shuffling the shit, and it doesn't really make a difference what I do.
I think his comments post-match about, he needs to kind of look again at the players and who he trusts. I think this relates to, I think it's all linked to the fact he also said, I could have made changes at half time and I didn't. I think he thought he could trust the players. I think, he does his team talk. He's probably very animated, because he does seem like that kind of manager. He's probably very animated. He probably thought that his message got into the heads of the players. And he probably wrongly trusted that his team talk was going to have an effect. And I think now he's realised that he can't trust them. He can't trust his team talk to have an effect on the players. So I think now, Anil, you might start to see a little bit of a switch in Rowett. I think he's going to make some changes for the next game. And I think if things aren't going to plan, he'll probably make then more, changes earlier. He's definitely been the slowest, hasn't he, out of all of them?
Yeah.
Marty was great at the start. He would make changes at half time, and it worked sometimes. And then that obviously petered away as the season went on. But yeah, waiting until 65th minute or whatever it is to make changes when you're not in control of the game, when you're struggling, that's not on really. So he should have. I'm sure he knows this though. I think he was pretty open. He was basically admitting to the fact he made a mistake. He should have made those changes at half time. So hopefully he's learned from that.
I think he's trying to build character, right? Because I think maybe what he saw against Ipswich is there's something to be said where if players can stick through the tough times and get something out of it, they'll come out stronger. Because sometimes what you get, and I think we get it in this squad, is that when you have a stinker, you can just run off early and go for an early bath. So you get away with it, right? And there's somewhere to hide. But unfortunately, it feels like they're all hiding out on the pitch there. And, now I'm going to start going through, obviously, the awful stats. So, you take that one win, you can see current form is awful. You can see here as well, both home and away were pretty bad. Now our home form, which we have won more games in the way, but it's equally pretty bad. We've lost 8 games, both, home and away, and we've actually got more draws away. So, it's starting to look like we're better away. You can see here that, 1.58 will come to this in a moment. That's very poor, some of the worst. Average scoring goals, but that's probably the one good thing we've still got. Yeah, I was just having a look at some of these stats on FotMob. Goals conceded per match, you can see we're 22nd out of 24 in the division. Awful. Clean sheets, only Sheffield Wednesday are worse than us, and they were relegated from the very get-go. Absolutely awful. Here's the worrying thing as well. You can see, despite the fact that I think we're not particularly good at attacking at all, our individual quality is getting us out of trouble. And you can see, look, the big chances that we create are way down the table still. So we're basically overperforming. And that's a worry as well, because like, I agree. I think Jordan James will probably keep scoring some goals, but like at some point, these wonder goals are going to dry up. I actually can't believe that they haven't. We're getting away with it time and time again in terms of we can do this. So yeah, actually, we're not too bad. We're 11th in terms of goals per match, right? But not really on the balance of play. It's not like we're making many chances. It's just we're converting better than we should be. And then, thought I'd bring this one out a long time ago. So what changes how we have actually seen on the route? It's kind of complicated here, but I've got 2 games from Marty Cifuentes, and the Oxford one is obviously the one who got sacked. Then we've got Andy King appointed. I didn't put the FA Cup game in here, but you've got the other 3, including, I think, the game where we pretty much went down, that 4-3 loss to Southampton at home. And then we've got Gary Rowett, who's now been in charge for 6 games. So what are we seeing here? Are there any differences? I mean, to be fair to him, the biggest difference is that we are actually picking up some points under him. So we've got 6 points from the 6 games. Probably not good enough, but it's certainly much better than what went before. But as you can see here, you know, XG, has it improved? Not really, because you can see against QPR, against Ipswich, against Norwich, against Middlesbrough, basically didn't create anything, which is terrible. Expected goals against, maybe that's improved a little bit. But, you know, the amount of shots we're having a game, not really changed. The amount of shots we're giving up per game, not really changed. Are we creating more chances per game? Not really. Are we stopping big chances against us? Not really. I don't know. I mean, look, I do think he's improved the team. I do think if you look at the eye test, you can see that we're trying a bit more effort. We're trying to be more defensively resilient. But underlying data says that we're shocking and that we're going to go down. That's the obvious thing. And well, I'll come on to the players in a moment, but what do you think about this? Because unfortunately, Locks, I look at all this data and I just think that's the sign of a team that's going down. And the one thing I thought might save us is Jordan James coming back. And I suppose he's not fully fit, but when literally the best thing you could hope for is you're playing a team who's on the beach, who haven't scored in their last 4 games. Your best player is back. Your best player scores a wonderful goal early on, and you still capitulate. And I just think once you've seen that, where give me some hope, guys, in chat as well. Where can I get some hope from? Because I don't have any.
I mean, look, a lot of us have been quite negative over the last, for a long time now. And, you know, some people say, why are you being negative? Why are you being negative? And my response to it is, what the fuck have you seen to be positive? Genuinely, like, what has anyone seen to be positive? You know, we're fickle and ill, and if we win the next 2, we're going to be buzzing and we're going to be like, okay, yeah, it looks like we're going to stay up. But I can't see us winning 2 in a row. I can't even see us winning against Watford. You know, they did a job on us last time. You know, if we can't beat Norwich and you can't beat QPR, then why are we going to beat Watford? I just don't see it. So, yeah, it's... There's no evidence to suggest we're going to stay up, in my opinion. And Rowett, I think, you know, some very small minor things have improved. I think effort levels at times have improved, although, again, even that's not consistent. Mm-hmm. I would say, Anil, and I said this on, not to name drop, Radio Leicester, when you're smiling last night. Yeah. And I'm sorry if you're going to ask this, but I'm going to say it again. For me, and I said it on the watch long, I would go with the midfield 3 of Harry Winks, Oliver Skipp, and Jordan James. And the reason for that, Anil, is I just think that is the most stable, safest. Oh, I did jump the gun. There we go.
This is great. So yeah, you talk to me. Why do you think that?
I think it's the safest. I think it's the safest pair of hands. I think it's the safest pair of hands. I think you will get from these 3. I think from 2 of them, Anil, you'll definitely get absolute unconditional commitment. Okay, definitely. Guaranteed for me from Skip and JJ. You're going to get that. You're going to get a commitment 100%. Winks, I think recently, you've gotten that as well. So you have to just hope and trust that that's going to continue. He doesn't seem to be throwing a paddy just yet, Anil. When he does, or if he does, then that's when it's time to get him gone. But for the time being, he is doing well. I think we won games of football, Anil, earlier in the season with this trio as well. So that's another bonus. So that's why I would go with this 3, Anil. And I'd be interested. Look, how it's set up is a different story. That's a different discussion.
Yeah, that's my issue.
But I think if you play these 3 in midfield, your chances are of winning the game. And this sounds really harsh on Mikasa. I think if you play these 3 in a game, your chances of winning the game are increased rather than when Mikasa plays. Personally, that's just me.
Perhaps. So I'm trying to be objective here. And to be honest with you, the thing that I've been saying all season long, when I see this team, if you take this fact that we're a Leicester fan out of it, what I see is just like Leicester just never have control of the game. They just never have it. They're always getting overrun in midfield. And that's a dramatic difference to the last time we were in the Championship. Why is that? So I wanted to look at our midfielders, and I also wanted to compare them to other midfielders in the league. And basically, you can see here are the 3 midfielders. But there's something to me that stands out about all 3 of these midfielders. And it's the reason why I think we aren't going to stay up. And it's the reason why we sucked all season. What do you think that is?
I don't know. You tell me.
So for me, it's that we don't have a ball winner or someone who can really do the defensive contribution. Now you can say, well, that's a bit harsh because look at Oliver Skip, 55%. This is rated to other midfielders in the Championship in his position. But I mean, look, I always say this, how I think he's a passenger in a lot of games in terms of the rest of it. So, okay, if you're going to be this kind of player profile, because compare him with this, here you can see that Jordan James, he doesn't seem to do too much either. But the one thing you've got to say is he creates a high volume of chances. He scores an incredible amount of goals and he has a lot of shots. So you can justify his place in the team. Harry Winks, not much of a defensive contribution either, but you can see he does create chances. He's always on the ball being the metronome. So he's actually someone there to kind of give you a bit of stabilization. But this player profile, at the moment, it's Oliver Skip, but whatever it is basically, okay, so is he your just defensive midfielder? But here I wanted to compare it to 3 other midfielders in the Championship.
I love the FIFA cards.
I had to get it. I removed their stats just that we got some of their rating here, right? But so, okay, you could say at the top end, I think they paid something like 12 million for Aitor Matisiwa. I'm saying his name from Ipswich. Matisiwa, sorry. But you can see here, look at him. Set top, 80% defensive contribution, wins the aerial duels, and he has a lot of touches. So this is like this is almost like your Ndidi replacement. So this one's like top draw. So we couldn't spend 12 million, fair enough. But, that is a team that also likes to have the ball as well. Next, you got John Solis, who's at Birmingham. Similar kind of example. Again, look, good defensive contribution, better than any of our players. But again, good on touches, even has some shots. That's pretty good. But then just sort of like really rub it in, right? This is, I think it's either Billy or Ross Mitchell, who's at Millwall, who are having a brilliant season. But again, at CDM, the amount of duels and defensive contributions does, and he still have chances. He even creates some chances. So what I'm saying is that if you compare our midfield 3, we just don't have anyone who's really getting stuck in. The most basic thing in the Championship. We don't have that. We're missing Wilfred Ndidi desperately, in my opinion. And I know this is going to sound crazy, and I'll get shouted at it, but I think you've got to put an out-and-out ball winner in there. Maybe even have to put friggin' Chowdhury in there. I know that sounds crazy, but I'm just saying, trying to take my blue-tinted glasses off for a minute. I'm looking at and I'm seeing we just don't win the ball back, so we can't get control of the game. So we're always getting overrun. And I think that that's a big mistake that we've done over the last few seasons, and there isn't that natural successor to do it, and we're struggling because of it.
So I'm not going to take in complete credit for this because it did come out of the mouth of Matt Piper. However, and I know you're not his biggest fan, Anil, and I know the stats, if you go back a page to where we saw Skip, sorry. What if you played Skip and you tell him your role is only to defend, to be that
and win the
ball
ball
winner.
back. Yeah.
And you play Harry Winks and JJ as 2/8s ahead of him. So Matt Piper spoke about a game, I can't remember what game it was, Anil, where it was basically Skip in that role. His role was the ball winner, and it was Winks and Bobby Reed, I think, as the 8s ahead of him. And That is I think that sounds good. Obviously, in theory, I think you could have Oliver Skip. You tell him your job, mate, is to just go out there, run around, and win the fucking ball. You let Harry Winks do the stuff on the ball, and you've got JJ attacking the box. A traditional 6-8-10 setup, if you like.
Yeah.
Obviously 6 and 2 8s, but obviously JJ right when he attacks the box, it's more.
Well, that's better because he starts from a deeper position doing that way as well, which is going to help him.
And I think the problem with Skip sometimes in it is, like you said, like, you look at his data there and it looks shit because I think he does try and do. He's not great at anything. He is a little bit of an all-rounder, I say that loosely. But in the game, he tries to do a little bit of everything. Send him out there and just fucking defend. You've got two players ahead of you who can attack. Who one of them can link up play extremely well. The other can attack very well. So that's what I would suggest. And that would be my suggestion. You have a single pivot of Skip, and you've got JJ and Winks ahead of him.
Get your tracksuit locks, you're hired. You'll be taking the game on the weekend. I know, to be fair, I like that because, look, firstly, I want to say that in terms of his commitment and attitude, I love it from Oliver Skip. You've got to say that is first class. But at the end of the day, football's a brutal business. These guys are millionaires, and I don't particularly want to see Leicester play in League One. And as it stands, unless we fix it, I do think that actually what you're talking about is something that we're seeing happen naturally anyway, because you are noticing Skip winning the ball back a lot more often. But I think you're right. Like, there isn't that sort of dead, as you say, like what Kante did. Kante would win the ball back, play it to either Drinkwater or Mahrez, and then they would start the attacks. He didn't have to beat 5 players or anything like that. He just did something very simple, but he did it so well that it allowed us to win the Premier League, the greatest one of them all. So yeah, I'm just saying that, I compare this to other teams. Richard, QPR fans also mentioned that Varane does that for them as well. Absolutely. We don't have that player profile. I think it's a big thing missing. It's got to be fixed regardless. I think, again, that's why question marks why we signed such a player like that, because we only had one in the team. Otherwise, with Ndidi, Samare didn't do it either. And if we don't do it and we don't get that aggression, as Richard Houston says here, what are we going to do? We don't want to win the ball back to get ourselves going. And, it's a very physical division, this one. So the next one, and it's fair enough about the number 10, and I think you're probably right, but I wanted to show you these stats because, this has happened a lot. A lot of people have said that you need to drop Mikasa. He was all over the place. Which, look, he's a young player, and I definitely see where you guys are coming from this. But again, I wanted to show the sort of stats. Again, he's not really one for the defensive contribution. But in terms of like actually making things happen, and, he has off games, I'm not going to lie, against Norwich and against, QPR. But, I mean, look, to be fair, he's not the finished article. I think that's the most obvious thing you can see with a player like this, that probably in 2 or 3 years' time, he'll be absolutely incredible. And maybe he's not what you need in the relegation struggle. But again, looking at these number 10s, yeah,
that's the thing. Is he the player for a relegation battle? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. And Kate said it on Sunday, and at first I was like, it's a little bit harsh. Like when you look at what he has done so far in a short space of time. But again, my head's set on that midfield 3 that I've already said. I think Mikasa is probably a really good player to bring on. Later in the game, if we need a goal, bring him on and try and let him do something and create something. But I think it's a risky option to persist with Mikasa in the 10 because I just think I think the midfield is very unstable when he's in it, personally.
Yeah, I mean, my personal opinion, a lot of people are saying here is I don't think he's not up for the fight, but I think he is used to playing at Man City. And Gary Rowett's even said this about him, that you can see with him, he's often trying to go for the overly cute, overly finessed ball, play it like first time around the corner, which is what you'll need at Man City to get around these deep blocks. But it's like in this particular division, it's not about playing like, that fancy pass. He's just playing a good pass at the right time, and you'll beat most teams just by doing that. But yeah, you got to tell Kate, though, no offense, right? She's got a proper crush on Bobby Reid. He's another ghost in the team, right? The data supports it. She has never got a bad word.
To be fair, she agrees with me on the JJ Skip and Winks midfield.
Okay. So, all right, I'll take it back. But yeah, I still know that she's got a Bobby Reid poster at her house, and God knows what she does with it.
If I was female and swung that way, I'd be...
But yeah, look, I think you're right. I think that is probably the way to go, this midfield 3 in the pairing that you've said. But that lack of physicality, again, that's the problem, that when you're targeting these two, you outmuscle them too easy. So We'll have to see. And people have suggested formation change. I mean, we're kind of getting desperate. So I'll wrap it up before I show you the table, which is the pressing and fixtures. But I've got 10 games to go. It's less than that. It's 8 games to go. A performance worthy of relegation. Yep, QPR hadn't scored in 7 hours prior to this game, but Dr. Leicester came to the rescue. We got a goal against the run of play early, but we couldn't capitalise. For me, I know you disagree, but I think Ben Nelson looks broken. He needs to come out of the team. And like I say, players have needed a rest in the past. They did it with Jakob earlier in the season as well. I just think it's one of those that it'll be replaying in his head. So that's why I take him out of the team. You need to put him in when we won a game or something.
Neil, with the knowledge that Vestergaard isn't ready yet,
yeah,
are you taking a Coley or Nelson out and putting this Lascelles?
For me, because he's made major mistakes in the last 2 games, I would right now take Nelson out of the team. I know what you're saying. I've also said it plenty of times on the watch-alongs that I think Caleb Okoli is an even bigger problem than Luke Thomas, right? But I'm just saying this is a guy that's literally made catastrophic errors. You're right. If Jakob hadn't saved that penalty against Bristol, they're going to equalise stroke win that game. So that's 2 mistakes in a row. The answer is you probably need to take both of them out of the team. That's how bad they look, right? But like I say, I mean, I showed you that on that corner. It's almost like it's happened to us before. Like I don't know if you've done it, but I've played in games where I've had to stink on. You almost want to hide on the pitch, right? And you're almost desperate for the manager to pull you off, but you don't want to say anything. So you just dodge everything and you deliberately don't ask for the ball and you make runs that are bad runs and there's things like that. So anyway, look, like I say, we don't create much. We rely on individual quality, but we're leakier than a sieve. And it's hard to see a team like this staying up. And that's a summary of this season, unfortunately. It was all talk about the Premier League. I think when we do our end of season show and we look at our predictions, it's going to be one of the most painful shows we've ever done. We didn't say it was impossible we could go down because it happened to Luton, but I mean the way that we've capitulated this season is absolutely awful.
For that graphic, Neil, for that graphic, you could have just had on the left Tottenham Hotspur, on the right Bromley.
Yeah,
you could have.
Yeah, God, well, yeah, Lincoln are going to be above us probably next season. That's absolutely crazy. Wrexham were non-league 10 years ago when we won the Premier League. They could well be in the Premier League next season. Here is the table. It's like I say, 38 games out of 46. Watford are playing actually tonight. We can see how they're doing.
1-0 up.
And now, no, there you go. But you can see we're 2 points away. I'd say Portsmouth getting dragged into it. Blackburn themselves had a great result to win there. We got them on the last day of the season. We've got Millwall the game before that, which is the one I'm really worried about because look at how well they're going. That's absolutely pathetic, Locks. And I think the thing that's most depressing, so here are the rest of our games that we've got left this season. And of those, do you remember what the results were or what the outcome was as a result of these games last time we played them?
So Watford was a loss.
Yeah.
Preston was a loss.
Yeah.
Sheffield Wednesday was a win.
Woo!
Swansea was a win. Portsmouth was a draw, I think. Hull was a draw, I think. No, loss. Was it a loss? Are you sure?
It was a loss. It was a heavy one as well. No.
Okay.
Let me check. Maybe you're right. I'm pretty sure we lost that one.
We might have, but I thought it might have been a 2-2.
We lost so many games that, No, they beat us 2-1.
Okay. Millwall was a loss. And Blackburn was Blackburn was a loss, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
one of Marty's last games. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Thank you.
This is the most worrying thing is that based on the previous fixtures, we got 7 points out of that lot. So if we went back to the table and assumed we got 7 points between now and the rest of the season, that would put us on 45. And, that would mean that these teams need just probably 3 more points and would be down. So it's super depressing. I think we really had to win that game against QPR. We haven't.
The only thing I would say is I could potentially... So away, we've got Watford, Wednesday, Portsmouth. And Blackburn. You could see us winning all 4. You could away from home.
Could you really?
Better. At a stretch, away from home where we are better away from home. I don't think we are. I would say a 0. maybe not those exact games, but I would say we're probably going to win 2 more games this season, personally.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And
Which
I
is
think
nowhere near
those
enough.
I think those 2 games, and get ready for this, Anil, because this is right. So I think we're going to beat Sheffield Wednesday away from home.
Really? Because that's the one that everyone's saying. It just feels
I
like
know.
such a... Yeah.
Yeah, it seems so obvious that it won't happen,
Yeah.
basically, for me. However, I think we're going to win away to Blackburn on the last day, but I think we're actually going to already be down, so it won't matter.
Right, yeah. So we'll get relegated at Millwall, and then we'll beat
Millwall.
Blackburn, but it won't matter. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're going to be relegated at home against Millwall, because I just think that the other teams around us are going to pick up a few more points, and yeah, that's it. We're down, personally. Yeah, we're absolutely down. I don't see a world in which we're not League One next season, mate.
Same. And I mean, I think it's like last season where we got relegated with 5 games to go, which is ridiculous. And I think, Locks, the honest truth is, I think if we don't get a win in the next 2, then I think that makes that Wednesday inevitable defeat even more likely, because I think if you get to this game and you haven't won any of these 2, probably the gap is now starting to become 2 wins or something like that. And the team will just give up and they'll zone out, and Harry Winks will zone out as well. And like whatever fight they had for a few games, that slight new manager bounce will go. And I fully expect the team to give up around this point. This might be the game where like you have to get something or you're down already, you know. Yeah, we do got to go all out, but just we're not going to, because so many players are out of contract. Like I say, the culture is just completely broken at the club. That's just the most obvious thing. And that's why I think we're finished. Like, Leicester have been in relegation fights before, and there have been other times you think we might have a chance, but this is like last season. We just think this is just a team that's going to capitulate. You say the international break could help. I mean, I wish I had your enthusiasm. I just don't see it happening at all. But
it hasn't helped at all. It hasn't helped at all season when we've had an international break.
Yeah, just come back worse. Yeah, I agree with this. The squad is already checked out. You're about to see a true capitulation. That's the most likely thing. And then people will be like, around this time, they won't want to get injured because they've got to get another move. Like, is Ricardo going to be going all out when the team is obviously inevitably gone and he wants to get that one last paycheck from a foreign country? No. And so will several other people in the team. On some more positive notes, some things just want to advertise. So, yep, someone put this here in the BTG chat. If you want to support a team that actually plays with some pride, you can go and see a local, the Anstey Nomads. Few games coming up. They've got a half-price entry if you've got a valid Leicester City Football Club season ticket. So yeah, go spend your time on that. They probably won't concede a goal as bad as we did against QPR. You can see some actual proper heading from stuff there. That's really good to see. You know, I wait for the inevitable Blue Tinted Glasses FC, which is going to be the Phoenix club for Leicester City, with Locks as sporting director.
Can you think of the expenses? I'll be spending more money than than Leicester flying Luke over for every game. But no, yeah,
gets us wins. Could be you and him. Though, yeah,
I think it would be very fun to do like a. You know what? I'm going to call them out. Why don't we do at some point in the near future? Well, no, some point in the future, right? A Blue Tinted Glasses versus Big Strong Leicester Boys charity match.
Oh, that sounds good. That sounds good.
So us and viewers of our from this channel against them guys and viewers of their channel. That'd be pretty fun. Maybe I'll pitch it to them one day. But that'd be pretty
What was
cool.
that Nigerian right back that you wanted us to sign? He's a viewer of our channel.
Get him in.
Yeah. Get him in. He can be our captain. We'll take on those big strong Leicester boys, that's for sure. One more thing. You've got this coming up. Talk to us about this. This sounds awesome. So
for anybody who keeps up to date with Leicester social media, you would have seen over the last few weeks or the last couple of weeks that Shane Flynn, who is a former academy player for Leicester City, has been making some TikToks, and he's told a few interesting stories. They're not all negative, some positive stories, talking about his time at the club. A couple like interesting, weird stories as well about certain people. He's going to be on the channel tomorrow, so I'm speaking with him tomorrow morning. I'm going to ask him all sorts about his time at the club. One thing I'm really looking forward to hearing, I think a lot of our viewers would really look forward to hearing about, is actually the pathway. What actually happens when you are a kid in the academy. Obviously, it's very relevant at the minute because we always think, where the fuck is Louis Page? Where is Bade Aluko? Why is Jake Evans out on loan? Shane Flynn is going to tell us all about it and kind of what sort of things happen, some of the hidden secrets of Leicester City Academy. So make sure to join us. The video itself will be out at 5 p.m. tomorrow evening. So make sure to stay tuned for that.
No, I can't wait. Hopefully he's got some stuff about the culture at the club as well, because that's why I just got a feeling it's Centre Parks there. That I've always had that feeling. Like,
well, that is on the list. That is on the list to talk about. Yeah.
You know, sometimes they have these screenshots and they're playing like water polo against one another, and I just think it's that all day long. Just, you know, people having the time of their lives out there in Syria. So anyway, look, it's been quite a long one, this one, but I mean, the depressing one. Well done, Locks, for sticking through it. Same with everyone else in chat. Haven't got much else to say other than, check out the Shane Flynn interview tomorrow. And then what else is coming up? Watch along on the weekend, right? For when we inevitably lose to Watford.
Yeah, we'll have a match preview on Friday as well. And then, the watch along on the weekend, which is, it's going to be even more depressing than this stream, I think. So, but that's pretty much it. Yeah, same old. So
there you go. So, right, thanks for tuning in, everyone. And we'll see you next time on Blue Tinted Glasses. Bye. Nice one.